One of the most common requests for people with a 3DS of really any variety is wanting to be able to capture the footage on it or be able to like hook it up to a TV or something and be able to play it that way so you get a much bigger screen. And typically in the past that has involved paying hundreds of dollars and sending it out to who knows where to have some random modder do the mod and then send it back. And that's only if any of the parts were actually in stock. Well, that changes today, for me at least, with this little guy right here. This tiny little chip is a 3DS or new 3DS XL capture card, and we're gonna get it installed. And honestly, I've been putting this off for a while because it's a small chip and it's got real small ribbon cables and real fine solder. But I think my skills have improved enough to be able to knock this out. So let's do it. Hey, what's up everyone? Game Dad here, and as I said, we are going to take this new 3DS XL, see, all nice. It's not new to me or anything like that. This is my original one that I bought on day one when the new 3DS XL came out, and apparently this is the most difficult one to mod. So I decided to be nice to myself and pick that one to do. But yeah, we're going to mod this and hopefully get a capture card working inside of it. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'll show you what needs to come apart on this. It's really not much, but then the real fun begins when we start soldering this little chip in. So let's dive in. So the first thing we need to do is actually get this little back plate off. So we got 2 screws to do that because they actually made this interchangeable, which I've always thought was kind of cool. That way you could throw your own flair, your own style onto it if you wanted to. Let's see here. Let's get this popped off. And luckily it has captive screws, so that's nice, you won't lose them. And then we need to remove the stylus and we need to remove the battery. Now I did make sure this was fully charged before I started this mod, that way it would be good to go for me to test. Now we need to remove the additional screws that are on here. There are 6 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're gonna take this back plate off. Then we just have the C-stick to remove and the main board itself. The rest of this stays untouched, thankfully, because this thing is kind of a pain in the butt to work on. Now, I did forget to actually also remove the micro SD card. We don't want that in our way. Now, with all those screws out, we can go ahead and lift off this whole plate area. Now, you want to be careful because the ribbon connectors or the ZIF connectors for the triggers are attached to this plate itself. So we'll be mindful of that whenever we are prying this out. And of course, silly me, I forgot, under these little bumpers is 2 more screws. So we'll get these out and then we'll be able to take off this plate. Now we can go ahead and get this plate actually pulled off. And I'll show you the 2 ZIF connectors that I was talking about. So if you look right here, there are those 2 little cables right there. We want to make sure those don't rip, otherwise our buttons won't work. So we're going to go in here and just kind of clip the little sides there. That way those become disconnected. Now you can pull that back plate off. We don't need that anymore until it goes back together. Now, on the new 3DS XL, they added the C-stick. That's this guy right here. And then this is the main board that we need access to. So we're gonna undo a bunch of ribbons and we're gonna take this C-stick out and get the main board out, and then I'll show you what we're gonna do next. And as you can see here, we have gone in and undone all of the ribbon connectors, including, whenever you take this out, you gotta be very careful. You flip it up this way, and then there's a ribbon cable here you disconnect, then one here you disconnect that goes to a bunch of other controls. Make sure you don't just pull this board out, it will break those ribbons. But now we have this out, so we can actually start getting to work soldering and prepping everything for this little board to go in here. And whenever it is in here, it's actually going to sit right here. So there will actually be a little bit of shell modification as well. But let's go ahead and do all of the prep work and get this thing soldered in, shall we? So as you can see in this part, I have modified the shell to create an opening for where the actual mod board is going to go. It cuts into an underplate so you won't see it from the outside, but you cut it for just the size of the board to be able to fit in here and for the little micro USB to be able to stick out of the backside of the shell. Moving on, here we have the ribbon setup, and unfortunately it is not pre-cut. You have to cut out this bigger piece and this smaller piece with something like a razor blade or an X-Acto knife, and then on all the small contacts you need to apply flux on each of these parts that I am pointing to here. Now, as you can see, I've soldered the bigger ribbon to the main mod chip and then added this bend for later use in the mod. Now back here on the main motherboard, we need to remove this little cover over the CPU, and then there's some cutting that we're going to have to do on the metal shield. And as you can see with the knife I'm pointing, we got 3 spots to cut, and then you can remove this. Now once that's out of the way, you got to do some cleanup with the silicone rubber around the CPU. You need to clean everything off of where all of the little resistors are, that way you have access to solder the ribbon on. Now once you have soldered on the main piece of the ribbon to all the different resistors, you're going to go ahead and flip the board over, because now you're going to add the audio cable to the board and to the back of the actual mod unit. Once you have finished soldering everything down, you will see that all the points have been soldered to all the resistors and the CPU. The cable is nice and secure, and then once you flip it over, you can see that the audio cable and the 5-volt power have been connected, and everything is stuck down nicely. Well, it's finally all soldered on, and I'm very glad that this kit came with 2 sets of ribbons, because unfortunately the first one of the contacts ended up being melted, because I didn't realize whenever you are looking at the CPU on here, there's a lot of silicone rubber blocking a lot of the eensy weensy little resistors, and I thought I had gotten it all out of the way, and I had not. So I ended up using my little digital microscope right here, that way I could actually see what I was doing, because these things, man, they're thinner than the line of solder right here. I don't even know if you can actually see it, but they are very, very tiny. So the microscope came in clutch. And with the new one, I was able to get everything soldered. I was able to use my multimeter, check everything, make sure nothing was shorting to ground. Luckily, it wasn't this time. So this is all put together. Now, I gotta put everything back into the actual shell and get it all set up and ready to go so it can try and be tested. Well, it is all back together, and as you can see, still turns on. So obviously that is a good sign. Everything is still working there. Awesome. So all we gotta do is see if we can now plug this thing in and see if we can capture with the software. The software is old, so I'm hoping everything still works fine with it, but let's plug it in and take a look. All right, well, I was going to show you the software. Good and bad news. Good news is the mod was successful. It doesn't short to ground anywhere, which is good. And when I plug it into the computer and make sure the driver is installed, I open up the software for it, the viewing software, and it detects the board. That's all great. No video signal. And from researching for the past several hours, what I can find is apparently the viewing software is pretty damn janky, and it's an issue a lot of people have. So yeah, not great news. I was really hoping to show you captured footage of my new 3DS XL, but I can't because the viewing software doesn't want to let me view anything. From what I can tell, it should be a driver issue. The software is pretty old. Like I said, it's janky, but yeah, I mean, I have some DMs out to some people that might be able to help, but until then, the mod was a success. I just can't use it. So, bummer. Not really the ending I wanted to this video. But if you like this video and you want to see another recent one where, you know, things were successful, go ahead and check out this area right here. And as always, I'm Game Dad. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you later.